Good evening, folks, and welcome to the 1960s Changing America. Today I'm here with Brittany and Ray. Tonight we're diving into a decade that will forever alter the course of American history, culture, politics, and relationships. We'll be discussing the impact of television, civil rights, political assassinations, and the Vietnam War, all while navigating the turbulent social changes of time. Let's get started. So let's talk about how television became the backbone of American culture in the 1960s. How can anyone forget the 1960 Kennedy versus Nixon debates? Over 65 million people tuned in, marking the first time TV helped decide an election. The visual power of the screen. Kennedy youthful and confident appearance versus Nixon's sweaty, intense demeanor, shaping perception. Wow.
Exactly. Those debates were a turning point in how campaigns were run. TV wasn't just for entertainment anymore. It was for influencing public opinion, and it didn't stop politics. Television also brought the civil rights movement into every living room, helping to change the way Americans viewed race and inequality.
Police turned high-pressure fire hoses on the young people and set attack dogs on them. Birmingham civil rights leader Reverend Calvin Woods was there.
There had been some dog biting, some beating, some killing. Many people were beaten and spit on and put in jail, lost jobs. But those were minor things compared to what we felt we had to do.
The brutal crackdown was widely televised, and images of the event were seen around the world. Robert Corley says this incident galvanized new support for the civil rights movement.
And speaking of the civil rights movement, television became a crucial tool in spreading awareness. People across the country saw the reality of racial injustice for the first time. Brittany, what role did TV play in the movement?
TV allowed the public to witness key events like the Selma March and police brutality in Birmingham. For many white Americans, it was the first time they saw the ugly about the segregation, which forced them to question their own views. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. knew how powerful TV could be, so he used it strategically to spread his message.
Now, let's take a look at the international stage. The moon landing in 1969 was a defining movement and millions watched live. Ray, how was this such a pivotal movement for America?
It wasn't just about space exploration. It was about proving American supremacy during the Cold War. The moon landing united the country in a shared moment of pride. It showed that Americans could achieve the impossible. And with TV broadcasting this achievement, it became a moment of national connection.
Okay, I know my viewers out there, they visual learners, so let me show y'all a little video right here.
This is Apollo 7 launch control, T-minus 3 hours, 4 minutes, 32 seconds and counting. Right on time as far as the astronaut countdown is concerned. The prime crew now departing from their crew quarters.
10, 9, ignition sequence start.
I'm gonna step off the limit. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And then, of course, there's Vietnam, also called the Living Room War. Every night, Americans watch horrific footage of the conflict on the evening news. Ray, how did this influence public opinion about the war?
Well, before Vietnam, wars were fought with a sense of distance from the American public. But with TV, people could see the brutal reality every night. The government's optimistic reports clashed with the images of war that viewers saw on TV, leading to the growing public dissatisfaction and protests.
Now, let's talk about leadership in the civil rights movement. We all know Martin Luther King Jr. was pivotal. He didn't speak to a crowd, he spoke to a whole nation. His letter in Birmingham jail, wrote in 1963, and his I Have a Dream speech, also wrote in 1963, were delivered in front of a nation audiences and pushed civil rights acts forward.
That's right. King's nonviolent approach inspired millions and demonstrated how powerful peaceful protest could be. His speeches used the media, especially TV, to bring the movement into American home, making his message impossible to ignore.
And now let's not forget about the important figures like Cesar Chavez, who led the farm workers movement. His work showed how the movements extended beyond race and into labor rights, also using TV to awaken his support for his causes. The year 1968 was filled with tragedy and disruption. The assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy left shock to the nation. What was the impact on American society?
1968 was a year of tremendous loss. The assassination of MLK sparked riots in cities across the country, and RFK's death, while campaigning, was a deafening blow to the hopes for political and social change. These events deepened the national divide, highlighting the turbulent political and social climate.
And don't forget about the 10 orphans in Vietnam, which shattered the government's optimistic narrative about the war. The offense was often the turning point of the war, which was viewed by the public. Ray, can you tell us more about the impact on this event?
Sure. The Tet Offensive, though a military defeat for the North Vietnamese, showed that the war was far from over. The intense media coverage of the attacks made it clear to the American public that victory was not in sight, contributing to the growing anti-war statement.
We cannot forget about the legislative victories that came in the wake of all this activism. After JFK's assassination, Lyndon Johnson's Great Society aimed to reduce poverty and racial injustice. And the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were major milestones.
Absolutely. These laws were direct responses to the struggle of the 1960s, and they laid the foundation for future change. The GI Bill and Brown versus Board of Education were also part of the larger movement toward equality, affecting everything from education to housing to military service.
To wrap up things, the 1960s were times of immense change socially, politically, and internationally. Television helped shape how we saw ourselves and the world. Civil rights leaders, political events, and global conflicts all contribute to an era that still influences us today. Thank you, Brittany and Ray, for joining me tonight. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep watching history unfold.